Welcome, everybody. My name is Eric Veal, and today we are talking about the top, what was five. Originally, we've added a couple pitfalls when using AI in your business. I've been using AI, I think probably since ChatGPT 3.5 came out, and been a fan and interested in it, and use it a lot. And I'm here today with Angela Starson, and so we're gonna kind of walk through the pitfalls, like the downsides and like the hard stuff components um, of AI and using AI, but then also we're going to balance it out with mostly kind of like what you should do or could do. Angela, you want to say hi?
Hi, I'm Angela. Welcome and thanks for joining us. And hopefully, this will be an interesting conversation as well as just an informative workshop.
Yeah, and just like logistic stuff, if you guys want to use the chat, please do. We'll try to monitor it, and I think for now, probably let's not have it be too interactive with unmuting and stuff. So let probably stay on mute, and we'll kind of run through the content probably through the 10 o'clock hour, and then definitely save the last 30 minutes if you guys can stay around at 11 Pacific. We can do a Q&A and just open discussion about what you're using AI for and what's working and not and everything. So that look forward to that part. So like I said, I'm Eric Veal. Seems like everybody on this call knows me, so so maybe I don't need much of an introduction. And but yeah, I grew up in Northwest Washington and lived in Seattle for 20 years, where I worked in tech and have worked for Microsoft and Salesforce and other companies. And I'm here today with Angela. Angela, you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, I'm Angela Starson. I'm a copywriter and an AI enthusiast, and I've been enjoying getting to know AI and what it can and can't do and how to use it effectively. So I'm looking forward to sharing today and hopefully learning a little bit as well.
Yeah, and Angela and I've been rehearsing this or talking about this talk for a long time, and we thought maybe like I could play a skeptic role of like that I was anti-AI and she would be pro-AI, and we thought that might be a little bit too contentious. So we're we each can argue either side of the fence if we feel like it. So a few things that we just want you guys to get out of the talk today is just, more empowered, like more comfortable with AI. Um, just willing to take chances with it, give it a shot. There's a lot out there and more changes every day. I'm kind of impressed and amazed by. I recently saw Claude 4.0 Sonnet in Visual Studio Code, and it like is writing code for me as I go and saying like, put this here, put this there, and just pretty amazing workflow. So we'll cover the tech side of this as well. And but just learn from our kind of experiences and pitfalls. Like we actually use some degree of AI, of course, like putting this talk together, and just lessons we learned even collaborating with each other to put the talk together. So that's covered as well. But ultimately we want you guys to, if you're comfortable, use AI, save time, just have better quality outputs. And like I said, feel free to drop questions and whatnot in the chat. We'll monitor it throughout the 10 o'clock hour here, and maybe you'll take away some new use cases from our talk. This is so my company is AppsJack, Angela's company is Magnified Vision, and then this is brought to us by Rain Catalyst. So for example, the student's boat Tarun, who's in here, is a tech accelerator program that I'm a startup coach in, and that's Rain Catalyst. And then they're partnered with or get grant funding from Washington State Micro Enterprise Association. And so I'm probably a micro enterprise, and that's fine. So this is curriculum that Angela and I put together, but it's a part of this broader program for this tech accelerator group. But we are recording now, and so this is just a general education for people that are curious about AI or want to use it. And I guess one other kind of caveat about that, right? This is being recorded in June of 2025, and so I'll bet you this talk in a month would be slightly different, and in 2 months would be really different, and in a year
And next year,
it'd be really
yeah.
different. And so, I think there is this wave that we're riding, and there's this wave that's coming of new tech and all this, and AI is a big part of that. And I covered this as far as, say hi to people in the chat, and we got to know Scott's in Bellingham. Jonathan, I know, is a patent attorney down in a Seattle area. Dominic Wong and I met each other through University of Washington grad school, and then Tarun, who I mentioned, he is in the Tech Accelerator program. And so our format is, like I said, first hour is just kind of stand and deliver from me and Angela, cover the topics. Again, we're happy to pause, look at the chat for any questions you guys may have. But we'll cover the seven pitfalls. So we kind of start with like, what is the pitfall? Like, tell me more about the pitfall. And then we walk into 3 tips for resolving it. And so hopefully just dialogical between me and Angela. And then the last 30 minutes, again, like total open forum, ask us anything, say anything, etc. So looking forward to that part. Okay, Angela, I guess I'll hand it off to you if you want to tell us what pitfall 1 is.
Yes, pitfall one is prompting poorly. And so we want to start with a question that we want you to consider contemplating, ask yourself, or if you want to answer in the chat, you can, or save it for conversation later. We have a question for each pitfall. We tried to be thoughtful about those. So thinking about the last time you used AI, were you clear on what you wanted, or were you hoping it would figure it out for you? So do you know what you want when you start? Are you clear on that? If you don't, you're going to make things harder on yourself than you need to. And so not knowing what you're asking for, not being clear with yourself first about what it is you actually want, like what project you're trying to accomplish, what's the end goal that you're after, what's your intention, not specifying what format you might want it in. I ran into some issues where I wanted a list of businesses. It could be just local dentists. I was looking for a dentist. Give me a list of local dentists. And then it occurred to me I wanted their websites. And so then I went back and asked AI, well, can I have the websites? And then I thought about it more and realized I wanted to have the dentist and the websites to easily paste into a spreadsheet. So the best way of prompting, for something like that would be give me a list of dentists and their websites in a table form. Now I have something I can easily pick up and paste in a spreadsheet, and it has all the information I need. So for me, stumbling into these pitfalls of, just if the goal is efficiency, a little bit of thinking ahead, not thinking ahead really is the pitfall about what it is you're after. And so then we can shift into the remedies I've been hinting at.
Yeah, so
Eric,
the
I don't
first
know
thing,
if you want.
like Angela says, yeah, I mean, just to wrap my brain around the prompting poorly bit is, it's just kind of like I think of being too vague. Welcome, Jerry. Being too vague, and then the more specific you can be, the better. I mean, that's just kind of it for me. But this was one tip that we learned in kind of researching this, but trying to be specific about, what you want, more specificity about who, or even kind of like who you want the AI to act as. Like, pretend that you're a, expert at, web technologies, and advise me as if you were a technical architect, da 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 da. So you can kind of tell it to act in a particular way. And then the
Mm-hmm.
how, like Angela mentions, would be like, in a table format, or, as 2 sentences of text. You can literally even be as specific as saying like 100 characters if you're trying to fill in something with the text.
Right. Right. I found with having it help me with certain business letters, communication, whatnot, I can tell it what tone I want it to have. Do I want professional? Do I want friendly? Do I want business but warm business tone? You can be really specific, and as well as offering, telling it what kind of formatting you want, and thinking about who is it for. So is this just for me? Am I creating something I'm going to be sharing with others? The more detail you can give, the better result you're going to get in the output.
Yeah, I think
And
go ahead.
oh, I was just gonna say with the second one, you can, even if you're feeling stuck and you're not sure, have a conversation with your GPT about um, what it might suggest the prompt could be, because that can be really fascinating too, to discover. You can ask you certain questions and feel it out and create a prompt that's the perfect prompt for you to feed back to it to then
Yeah.
get the result you want.
Yeah, it can do the prompting for you essentially, or tell you what prompt is appropriate for what your query is. So, yeah, think of it kind of dynamically. I mean, it is kind of out there, but if you think of it, especially the who part of it for me in particular, of kind of like telling it to act in a particular mode or way or with a particular mood or things like that, you can get pretty drastically different things. And then I think the format bit there too is important of like, look, I want a table of data. I want 4 columns, each of which are these, the data types, and you can be really specific with it.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
then
with content, even saying things like, I only want 3 sentences. I don't
yeah,
want an essay.
right. Or shorten this and keep iterating too. It's like don't also feel like you did it once and it kind of didn't give you what you want. Keep trying. And then if also it kind of rat holes, just start over. That's another kind of quick tip. But the final
Mm.
one we have here is using templates. It's pretty much what we're saying, but it's if something works, save your work, if you will,
Mm.
and be like, look, if and I know some people, for example, they've got like real big prompts. I've done some of this, but if you come up with the secret sauce of asking it something that always gives you like the particular type of reliable result, save that off. And that's what some of the agents do as well. Angela, you could maybe speak to that a little bit more as far as like the agentic
Well,
stuff or creating your own agent. Like, aren't you kind of telling it how to behave or how to respond?
right. So there's the prompting for the GPT that you can create so that you will have a sort of a personality that you form it into. And then, so that's a different, that's like a backdoor sort of prompting, a really what am I trying to say? It's like, it's a development sort of thing. Whereas then there's the prompting that you're feeding into it to get the result you want. And people are sharing their prompts all over the place. And there's a website I just stumbled into recently. I will put a copy in the chat of a link to that website in the chat. I found it really helpful. Um, it it's just an entire website of prompts. I like comb through, search through, find, people are figuring out how to do this really efficiently, and you
Yeah.
don't have to reinvent it every time if you can copy paste.
And this whole theme, I think this category, probably for some of you guys in the audience, is like, I think this entire topic is known as prompt engineering. If you
Mhm.
get good at this skill of prompting, not poorly, but well, you are a
Mhm.
prompt engineer, or you are effectively engineering prompts to get what you want. And then we'll get into some of the other limitations in the next as we step in other pitfalls. And feel free again to throw any commentary or experiences you guys have had with that into the chat, and we'll try to respond. So pitfall
Mhm.
two is just assuming too much. I think it's a mix of kind of feeling like it's going to give you everything, or thinking that it's a silver bullet or a guarantee, or that you don't have to do anything anymore. All you have to do is cheat with GPT and all is well. So that's that's kind of my intro for that topic. Assuming again, like, includes to me not really reading the response, like just kind of cavalier usage of, hey, it gave me something, I'll just use it. Like, it's totally buyer beware here of, look, it's free early stage software. Pretty much all of them say, I've noticed that their tagline is like, responses may be incorrect, is really what they say, is like, this just might be wrong. And they tell you that. So, you use it at
Beware.
your own peril. um yeah, taking it at face value, assuming that it's right, not checking its sources. Like, if it's just spitting stuff out and it just comes up with some cockamamie, 30% of this and that, or 92% of whatever, and you're just like, take its hallucination at face value, that's risky. And again, you're the ultimate mouthpiece here, so take that response at risk. And then not iterating, I think similarly, of like, oh, perfect, it gave me what I want, and just no edit, copy it out, and I'll so the question we're asking here, just taking the face value, so we're saying that, and then we see the office space guy. If you could go ahead and do that, that'd be great. Angela, anything to add to like what this pitfall is, or you want to step into the remedies?
Yeah, I was just going to add that I've had times where I've asked the GPT for educational websites on a certain subject, and it gave me one college website, and the rest belonged to businesses that had blogs that were attempting to educate people. So it's the quality of the responses. If I use those businesses as references, depending on what I'm doing, if it's a blog, I may now be marketing for a business. So thinking, really paying attention to it goes back to that, what are you trying to do in the first place and what do you want? And are these results giving you what you want and is it accurate?
Yeah.
But so yeah, diving into the remedies, um, slow down and scan with skepticism. Make it a habit to at least scan for red flags. If there are dates, are there any outdated facts, dates that seem off, anything that seems strange? AI can sound confident, but that doesn't mean it's correct. So it really just depends on it's like how do you want to be perceived as someone who just throws things out there without paying attention, or are you taking your time? Because as much as we want this to save us time, and AI can save us time, we don't want to be like stupid about it, and suddenly become worse at doing the task because we're trying to save time. So fact checking, especially the more important it is, the more you really want to double check the sources, and can it give you sources? What are these sources? That circles back to what I was saying. Are you getting the kind of sources that you want? Eric, did you want to add?
Yeah, I think, similarly, like understanding the severity. I mean, some of the original use cases that I had for GPT was almost, if you guys know lorem ipsum, it's just filler text, and that's something that if you're a designer, web developer, etc., like frequently if you're just kind of faking something out, you might need some lorem ipsum text. And GPT a couple years ago, like it's not that it was bad, but that's kind of looking back what it was like is like filler filler words like drivel. It could produce as much content as you wanted it to. And if you were just trying to fill a screen with text, and that something was better than nothing, and there was really no risk, and you just wanted to say something better than being coy or mum or having nothing to say whatsoever. So I think back in the day, I was probably like pretty cavalier in some scenarios about not even caring really too much, but over time it's and especially if you use it for programming. I mean, Jonathan as an attorney, for example, I mean, it's just like the higher your stakes are with programming, it's like you could have a single character off that results in some crazy bad error. And then similarly in legal, if you get a word wrong, it means the opposite, or means something you don't mean it to be meaning. And so the precision and accuracy stuff, there still is a science and an art here too. Working with it to get the response, and then once you get it, again, there's still a science and an art to refinement and perfectionism. So I think no free lunch here unless you're just trying to spit out lorem ipsum, which is probably rare.
Right, right. AI is not an expert. It's there it can help you, but it's not an expert.
Yep. All right, let's move on to the next one. So
Yeah.
this one I think is yours, Angela.
Yeah, yeah. Pitfall three, getting stuck on a single AI. Are
Yeah.
you using the right tool for the right task, or are you settling into one you're just gotten comfortable with? This pitfall is concerned with using only one AI as an all-purpose tool, settling into Chat GPT and deciding that's it. Getting dependent on one single um, GPT within the AI spectrum, one little personality creature that you created, and not branching out for other tasks where you can program a different GPT to do different tasks and have a different tone or a different set of skills. I mean, you can have a GPT that's concerned entirely with programming a software versus a separate GPT that might be your helper for writing fiction story of some kind. You know, these are very different ways of computing. And so you want to make sure you're using a computer that works for you and not trying to cram everything into one. Um, use it to um, like using it. What am I trying to say? I got lost. Where am I at, Eric?
No,
Can
that's okay.
Did
I
you have
mean, just
anything?
to
I
add,
don't know if there's any more to add on that.
yeah, I mean, just at a high level, like mine on this of getting stuck on one is, I think in the beginning, well, actually, so real quick, I have a Copilot Plus PC from Microsoft. I worked in Surface for 3 years, and Microsoft added the first key to the Windows keyboard in I can't remember how many years. It was like basically since 1995 when they added the Windows key. This last year they added the Copilot key because you got to launch your GPT, in their case, Copilot, right? So they're brand staying true to brand. And but my point is like I'm probably like too dependent on Copilot from Microsoft for most of my tasks because it's right there, it's built in. I hit the button and like magic happens. There's nothing to think about.
Mhm.
Whereas creating bespoke and custom, like again, back to this art of like creating reliability and predictability in a GPT that is going to create the same output every time. That kind of gets more into like machine learning and whatnot. Is like if you had it always like for example, like this is not beyond LLM, it's more machine learning side of like what's what's in this image. This is an image that has people in it or whatever. So but yeah, I think you got to look at it as a spectrum from like the general GPTs to the specific GPTs, and you can be as specific as you want. And then there's purpose built GPTs now, like I said, for programming. It's also a matter of you get what you pay for.
Mhm. Mhm. Right. Sh- Should we jump into remedies?
Yeah,
I
so
think.
just
Yeah. Yeah. So like you were saying, matching the tool to the task.
yeah.
Then you can find things like I stumbled into, I didn't spend too much time with it, but companies are having their own GPTs for things. So there are things to look out for. Like Expedia has a GPT for travel that you can have a conversation with specifically about travel. And so it's going to be preloaded with all kinds of information. Those kinds of things are worth looking for and being open to, I think, to be more efficient and to get a better outcome, get better output.
Yeah. Yeah, I think one of the other risks is just like becoming a technologist and a full nerd of this, where you're just exploring all the tech and more from like a scientific perspective, what's out there and the bleeding edge. And there's a lot of good news articles out there. Like one that we've found is called the Neuron, and it's always talking about the latest and greatest of AI. And I'm sure you guys have ones if there's any that you guys are consuming, but this space is changing daily for sure, and the capability capacity of GPT and AI is advanced. And so my company's Apps Jack, and that was originally just like there's an app for that, and now it's like there's a GPT for that same thing, and it's a different kind of thing. Angela and I have kind of debated like is it just a tool or is it beyond a tool, and like is there a difference between a tool and an agent? And there's definitely differences we could imagine between something that's kind of static, a tool, and something that's an agent that's kind of living or thinking or changing or improving or and so forth. But yeah, getting stuck on one is kind of what we're calling out here. All
Yeah.
right.
Yeah. Then, yeah, I just don't want to get too stuck. Yeah. Don't get stuck. And what's our
Yeah, so
next one?
so this is like the um opposite, I guess, is just instead of like seeing it as a bottoms up of like look at all these technologies I could use, this is thinking that it's only for one thing. Like I said, it's for lorem ipsum, or it's for Google searching, or it's for da 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 da. Like this is the problem of assuming that you know what it even is for. And I think the answer is it's like becoming for a lot of things. And Anything to add to this one, Angela?
Yeah, just only missing out on all the ways it can streamline your processes and systems. So if you're only using it as like a life coach, you might be missing out on how it can automate tasks. Or other people are automating tasks, but they haven't asked it any personal life questions.
Yeah.
And so they haven't discovered that it can offer some decent advice from time to time. It can be little things, but those little things can mean a lot when you're going through your day and wanting to be more efficient in your daily processes.
Yeah. So the remedies for that one, first one here is just ask it. Like,
Yeah.
what can you do? What are your capabilities? What are your top, and then go try one that it said. If you didn't know that it could slice and dice, go see how it slices and dices.
It comes up with things that I would never have even thought to ask it. And I sometimes I don't even have to ask it what more it can do. It'll just start offering things and I'll be like, oh, I didn't even consider I might want that. So you can even say, just the what else can you do? It might surprise you what you didn't know you needed and it thought of and now you just made your life a little bit easier.
Yeah, one thing I noticed, just like I said, this Claude, Anthropic Claude 4.0 Sonnet in Visual Studio Code. I just ran into this. It's just, just they unlocked it for me or whatever. But it has chat mode, you just talk to it. It has agent mode, like it's going to do stuff, and then it has edit mode, which I haven't tried yet. But just exploring the different stuff that they're giving you, you might as well just see what it is and explore it, and there could be some nice hidden beyond behind that curtain.
Yeah. Yeah. Looking for things too in your daily life. I'm skipping to number three, but
Yeah,
looking for things in your daily life, like letting your mind open up enough to say when you're trying to puzzle something out or trying to plan something, whatever it is that's a task, asking like, is there an AI for that? Can I use an AI? What might that, how might that make life a little easier and more streamlined? And so that circles back to number two of communicating with other people, which I'm starting to see people volunteering how they're using AI. And then it's helpful to, busy moms saying, hey, I've started using AI to schedule my week for me. And it's amazing, and then other moms are saying, oh my gosh, I have this now. I didn't even consider that I could take my busy schedule, or even if you're not it could be a student with a job, you could just be the average person with your work-life balance. But little things like having it help you plan your life a little bit, I guess, can be really liberating. I haven't used it for that specifically, but I've heard people raving about that. And I never would have thought to do that either. Just it takes one person doing it and then sharing their experience. And so it's sharing with others. And then when you see something pop up, make a note somewhere to try it yourself.
yeah, and then I think also this one, to use it reliably and repeatably for a single use case, like totally nothing wrong with that. We're just kind of saying go ahead and explore, and there's more than meets the eye. But I think also it's like saving off the repeatable scenarios that you've figured out. That kind of becomes a part of our brain, I guess, right? Is like, look, we know that we can get this kind of result if we hit this kind of button or do this dance, and so
Right.
that's
And
how.
the more companies producing more GPTs, the more AIs are coming out, the more we're going to see very specific, I think more specific and refined. It's already happening, but I think that's going to continue to grow. The more refined
Right.
AI, GPT kind of thing that you can access to do very specific tasks.
Yeah, I think one other thing that just dawned on me is like our home assistants, people with Alexa or people with Google Home and et cetera. We have Google Home here. I probably can't say it out loud. It's probably going to start responding if I say that. But that's kind of the old school, right? Where you kind of ask it a point, it's not dialogical, et cetera. And um, I'm not sure yet if anybody's come out with like the LLM version of the Home Assistant. I don't think Google's updated their stuff to Gemini yet, but I think that's coming. So it'll change the whole, like, again, dialogical and communication mode versus ask and respond in the old web thing, a request and a response. And I ask Google a question and it gives me 10 links. Like we're well past that now. Angela, you want to tell us what this one is?
Yeah, Pitfall 5, becoming overly dependent. And I love this question. Where might you be using AI as a crutch, and what could change if you gave your own thinking more space? It, when I'm sitting down to a project, there's always a moment where I decide how much I want to ask the AI to give me versus how much time I want to spend brainstorming. Um, because trusting AI more than yourself or your intuition is not a good habit to get into. So you want to tune into yourself. Um, Too much faith or in the AI, you don't want to get lazy with it either. Engaging AI too soon or too often can be really troublesome for the creative process. Circles into relying on it too much and expecting too much from it to the point where you could risk losing your own sense of your own voice and avoid doing even your own deep work. And for whatever the work happens to be, whether it's your own interpersonal work or creative work or analytical work that you need to do, you don't want it to you don't want to just not be using your mind anymore. That's the danger, is forgetting how to use your own ability to think.
Yeah, I think the crutch word's real good. I mean, I was thinking to myself yesterday, I was wondering like what probably like how many, GPT prompts do I issue a day? And I'll bet you now, honestly, with my current life and work, I'll bet you it's 100 or more. I mean, it's a lot. And especially if you use it, I mean, if you ever try to use it in a conversation, like help me think through da 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 da, and you ask it to like sit and be with you and kind of ask you a question at a time, kind of more in like coaching mode. I mean, you can spend a lot of time with it, and so I don't think per se there's anything wrong with it. I think it's an addiction like anything else. It's like be careful and recognize that there is an opposite of not engaging it, and that it's okay. Um, so for the the addicts out there, whatever, they would easily fall prey to the trap of the value of it. They might be lacking, something about themselves and their own kind of courage and capacity.
Mhm.
Ready for remedies?
Yes.
Cool. So the first remedy is digital discernment, kind of a buzzword, but just be discerning. I've been
Mhm.
a Google web searcher person, since it came out, and it's useful, and I think built a career on it, really, of that ability to use the internet for things, and a lot of great information out there. But here we're talking about the pitfalls, and one thing I mentioned to Angela before we started is like we're trying to talk about the like big grave ones today. Originally we thought, oh, we got five of them here, like five, like be careful, like warning, stop sign kind of stuff. And there's other like little you're gonna need to veer left here, you're gonna need to veer right here, and so we're all just kind of trying to navigate this new tech and figure out what new places it can
Hmm.
take us to. How about
Right, right. And that's that developing and maintaining your critical thinking skills,
yeah.
not just for the whatever it is you're working on, but also to assess the content that's being spit out.
Mm,
You want to make sure that you don't want your mind to get lazy. You want to stay tuned in, and goes back to verifying your information, and also recognizing when AI might not be helpful for a certain scenario.
yeah. And yeah, I mean, at a minimum, like don't forget about your friends or whatever. I think for some people, it's probably a good new resource that opens up a new channel to, connect with something that seems reasonably attuned to your thoughts and feelings and this and that. You can kind of tell it everything, but we all need lives outside of our digital lives, so don't forget
Mm,
that.
yeah. Yeah, and using AI to support your thinking, not replace it. And I find that taking time to think independently before plugging something into AI can make for a better result with the AI, that it's basically creating a better prompt. So I recently in a community group that I'm involved in, they needed a flyer with a certain amount of information. There was a big discussion about what kind of information we want people to have that could go on this flyer. And so I took all of those points that everybody was making, and I just put them in a list. And with the AI, and with the tone that I wanted it to have and the overall, and it really didn't take that long because a lot of what I was doing was transcribing what people were already saying and then plugging that and saying, hey, now create a flyer with this content. I ended up with a really great result that, needed editing. So continuing my own ethics as a creator and a writer. I don't want to just say there it's done. That's the next step, like taking what was there and reading through it with a critical eye and polishing it up. So being willing to learn how to be good at something without AI so that I think makes you more effective with AI. I think that trying to use AI to make up for an area where you may be lacking might be somewhat helpful, but you need to know what a good result is so that you can get yourself there and use AI as a helper and not just something that you're dependent on. And what if it gets it wrong and you might not even know? You need to have your own thought process going into it. So building no AI time into creative work is another remedy for those kinds of problems. Learn, like, continuing to hone your own skills and not just depending on AI to make up that difference is really important to the content you're sharing. And people are going to be discerning more and more. They want to know that a human was involved in creating something. People don't want to read nonsense.
I think another thing I would just add here is I was talking to some techie friends last week, and the conversation shifted to AI, if not started as AI. It seems to be in a lot of conversations I have these days. But what I was saying to people more as an argument is like it can't validate your work for you, right? It's not your customer. And even if it cajoles you into thinking and making you feel confident in your work and all this kind of stuff. So like for example, I to promote this event, I originally wrote my own LinkedIn post, just threw it out there. And I was like what I wanted to say. I'm like, this is it. And then I like didn't get a lot of traction on that LinkedIn post. So I went to GPT kind of like crying a little bit about like, look, I posted this on LinkedIn. Why didn't it get traction? And it explained it to me. But my point here is more like there is a world without AI, which is to say there is a world of humans that are ultimately validating your work, paying for your work, and et cetera. And if you're not connecting with a human, actually, you have a false positive here by feeling, the AI is making you feel good, but there's still all kinds of reality tests out there that have nothing to do with an algorithm and have everything to do with authenticity and connection and more the emotional side of value.
Mhm. Definitely. Yeah.
All right.
So,
This one is just this was I guess we added this one, right? We originally had five. This is more of a joke slide. Disagreements between teammates about the use and potential of AI. I mean, this is really more of a style and a personality thing. Again, I mentioned at the top of the talk that Angela and I I considered for a moment, hey, look, I'll play the skeptic and kind of like say that I don't like AI and I think it's terrible and we shouldn't use it ever. And then you play the fan of it and we can argue and have fun. We thought that that probably wasn't great for our relationship. So we avoided
but
that.
I think we ended up including this ended up adding this pitfall because when we were working on this project, we were really including all of these pitfalls and remedies in the conversation of the creation of the slides and the workshop, and when to take time before, before going to AI, like when to take time and just brainstorm, and when to then ask AI any other additional ideas. And then of course there's the editing afterward of going back through and saying, okay, well, this is redundant. The thing is repeating itself, let's refine it. And then using our own words to refine what we're doing. And it was really fun to work as a team with Eric and also AI and our different approaches and exploring all of that. So one of the things one of the things we discovered was getting into it's almost hard to like claiming that one person used AI when maybe they didn't, so and then, or someone else is claiming this one's overusing it, but that one's also using it. And, when everybody's using the AI and how we just might be using it differently.
Yeah, it gets into like skill level and stuff as well, right? And then back to again the results that anybody can glean from it, whether they're good or bad, or where should have been gotten in the first place. Should it have been consulted as a tiebreaker or not? Was it meant to be between two people, and the two people thought they were having a conversation, but then AI was in the loop, and AI had some other thoughts. I think there's a ton of innovation, I'd argue, in this field of like how uncomfortable it really is for people to have that level of capacity coming through a GPT that can, be listening to what we're saying now, could be reflecting in real time, and so it's that kind of like peanut gallery effect of this third party, like where did that person come from, and why do I now have to argue and defend points that I never made and you never made, and like what are we even doing here? So
Right.
it's we found ourselves, this is almost level of trap, not pitfall. Like this is a
Right.
risky one.
Yeah, and this also there was one of the notes that I have here is that one person wanting to use AI more than the other person, and that reminds me of someone who I won't name, that Eric and I know, who just loves AI so much that he just loves to use it like more than it's almost
Oh
hard.
yeah,
I
yeah,
find
yeah.
it we almost found it hard to work with him because
Right.
he's so enamored with AI,
Yeah.
that it's so AI forward.
Yeah.
So that's another challenge I think that we all have to watch out for when we're trying to
Right.
be teammates with people.
And I really think like my claim here would be that there truly is like an AI usage personality that we each have, like the degree to which we're risk taking, the degree to which we're trusting or not, trusting of people versus trusting of technology or academic sources or AI sources, and whether we like take the side or pick the side of AI because it's
Right.
from, the knowledge of the internet and human capacity again versus leaning on your own self knowledge, confidence, and everything else, and kind of becoming a parrot or a mouthpiece of the AI instead of yourself.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, this
Yeah.
this
What
one was
are
kind of a fun ad that
yeah.
that dawned on
Yeah.
us as we were producing
Yeah.
this. You want to tell us what the remedy is, or what the first remedy
Yeah,
is?
so recognize that AI is complex, it's highly variable in terms of its use and how it's understanding between individuals. Um, so you decide and discuss at the outset of the project, maybe.
Yeah.
Do we go straight to AI by default, get our ideas, then edit and play with it, or do we pause? Do we spend some creative time without AI or very light AI? That needs to be something that a team can, to at least to some extent, agree on so that everybody feels like they're on the same page.
Yeah. I think there's a related one here where I think it's like technology more broadly. And Angela, sorry to surprise you with this one, but I think like the idea of, so Angela and I both work on a nonprofit for a historical society, and it's like, should we use Facebook for this? Should we ask the Facebook group for this? Or are we better off to like ask the members or ask the group? It's like once we kind of go public or take some particular like larger public step. Like, should we be doing that or not? And so I think there is kind of a permission, opt in, opt out kind of scenario where it's like, look, I do want you to know that I'm about to use AI for this or whatever it might be, but kind of asking for permission and thinking about it with respect. I'm about to bring somebody to your party. This person I don't know or do know or whatever, but I think there is this kind of thing that I ran into in this project about trust of intuition versus trust of outside sources or third parties that were not really invited.
Yeah, yeah. And so gathering more info, make sure you have the right AI that's going to work for everybody. Um, Talk to the teammates, like I said, even if you're so
That's
inclined, talk
true.
to the
Yeah.
AI about it. And tying with what Eric was saying, with intuition, keep developing your own intuition so that no matter what, to say like you can get away with not working with AI, I don't think that's going to be a thing, because at the very least, you're going to be in a team, you're going to be working with people who are working with AI. So even if you're not sure how much you can trust that this person has double checked everything, if you're developing your own intuition, your own skills in that area, then content that you come across, you're going to be better able to discern if it's something you want to double check, or if it feels right, or if it has the right tone. And so that's where finding that hybrid space, so that you, for yourself, but also to enable you to work better with others.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, and the attitude and style thing, I think again, like the privacy security part of it is like if someone consulted with AI to clear their brain or ask, get some additional information, or the same is true for journaling or taking a walk or whatever. Like if you did something to change your mind or etc., it's like you kind of have the need to let others know that you have additional information, or something transpired, or even
Right,
ask for feedback, or it's again,
right.
it's a,
And
it's a
then
new set of opportunities for not argument but input, right? And
input,
how
right.
how
And
many
that's
of that,
where
how
we
much of
all,
that can you take?
it's true. And that's where we can all start developing um, patience and accepting that other people are going to have a preference to either work with it or without it, more or less, and practicing grace with each other and being open-minded. That if we have an intention to collaborate effectively to get to an end result that we can all feel satisfied with, then we can, I think, as individuals, be more allowing of others their process in the
Yeah.
creative, in that endeavor, like their creative process. Some people's creative process might include more AI, some might include less, but it doesn't mean we can't get where we're trying to go.
Yeah. Yeah. Cool. All right, so here we are, seven of
Yeah.
seven. Angela, you want to take this one or you want me to?
You can go ahead.
Okay,
This
so
our last one.
this guy is resisting or disregarding the power and potential of AI altogether, right? So this was this, and these kind of came in order, right? Like originally we had these five, and we're like, these are the five, and then we're like, wait a second, we have differences between ourselves about how much of this to use and when to use it, and should we iterate, should we not iterate, and it's really differences in creative style. And then
Mhm.
this one, I think is kind of a delusion or a fool's errand of just being like, look. And there's, there is a dark side to AI. We'll cover that in a little bit, but the Luddites out there of like, just it's the next thing. This is another fad like blockchain or whatever. But looking back at, cars, planes, PCs, the internet, smartphones, etc., this to me feels equally big or bigger than the internet. And that's
Mhm.
spoken from somebody that um again has spent their life, I guess, believing in the power of the internet, for better or worse, and seeing it
Mhm.
shift from the olden days to the Facebook and Twitter world that we have today on social media. But anything else you'd say, Angela, about just like what this pitfall is or why we're calling it out?
Yeah, yeah. So if your discomfort with AI is so intense that it's becoming a barrier to connecting with others who are choosing to use it, you might want to pause and ask yourself if you're letting fear get in the way, because the last thing you want is to, I mean, the last thing you want is to lose a job because you just refuse, you just can't let yourself, you want to let fear um, cause you to get lost in the AI wave. I really agree with Eric about how powerful it is in terms of, ever since the internet. And I think for me, the last big milestone in terms of technological leaps was the smartphone. And so now we have AI. It just feels like that next leap. And um, not seeing the upside to that means not taking advantage of the upsides, means
Yeah.
getting lost, means risking disconnect from other people, could be losing jobs, losing opportunities. Those are definitely downsides to putting your head in the sand.
Right. And then I think the flip side of it is like zealotry, right? Of just like this is a panacea, this is, gonna necessarily help every human on the planet and save the planet and everything else. I think
True.
there's just a dark side to it as well. I mean, if you look at power
Yeah,
consumption or like we're saying as far
right,
as, I mean, there's been like brain studies on those that try to write essays with AI and what it does to their brain versus
right.
doing it the hard way. But
Yeah, yeah, it's true that if something is being overused, overconsumed, then that's another way to lose opportunities and disrupt connections, especially if you ruin your reputation because you were overdoing it and not following the checks and balances that you need to with
yeah.
such a powerful technology.
Yeah, so that's a good segue to kind of how to fix it. Like, so we're
Mhm.
referring to this as just nuance. Is like, look,
Yeah.
it's complicated. There's a lot here. It's new to all of us. Like, none of us have ever experienced this level of
Mhm.
technology. I guess that's always been true. I mean, technology continues to advance from the wheel on, and here we are, and whether
Yeah.
it's doing this doubling kind of exponential growth stuff or not, it definitely to me feels like some kind of weird inflection point and truly a new way to work that that did not exist. And for my, as a software engineer, for example, and as a marketer, I can't believe how much work product I can create, whether it's high quality or low quality, I'm not sure, but at least it exists. And that alone is a big shift, and maybe I need to hire more editors and quality assurance people around me. But Angela would be an
Yeah.
example of one. So
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't have to be an all or nothing situation. And you don't want to be dogmatic about it and total about it. And like you say, hiring others, appreciate others
yeah,
and differences and experimentation and how much we as humans can work together on things. So if editing's not your forte and you like you're good at, maybe you're good at prompting, you're good at having this output from AI, but you need a teammate who's great at editing, okay, so you pass it to them, they can do the editing, they can make sure it sounds human, and kind of vice versa. Some people are just really great at ideas and AI can help flesh that out. So, whereas a lot of us enjoy the editing or vice versa, just it can really, I think we can use it as a bridge if we want to in many
yeah,
ways, shapes and forms. And that to me is a great remedy, is when we start to think about how can we build connections as
yeah.
opposed to avoid connections.
Yeah, one other note I had, I'm just noticing this, wanted to share it, is there's kind of a fear of missing out of like not using it, and oh God,
Yeah.
I better learn it and figure out how to apply this to my job or life or whatever, career,
Mhm.
etc. Versus the kind of grave risk side of people refer to this as a fear of losing your ass, pardon my French, but just the downside side. But that's kind of the balance we're asking people to strike. So that was the pitfalls and just kind of quick conclusions. We think of it as a partner, not really the leading driver and whatnot. And there will be, of course, unattended AI and things that run and do stuff on AI, and we'll see where that all goes and how that affects our life. So, Angela, you want to share the second one?
Yeah, you want to let it spark ideas and streamline your work, even challenge your thinking, but don't just hand everything over to it.
Yeah.
Continue to um, use your own mind and be interested and ask questions.
Yeah, everything in moderation. Your creativity, judgment, and voice still matters the most. Is just like, you know, don't forget your humanity and all this, and the humility side of how neat this technology is, but how fun it is to talk to humans, and just learn from them.
Mhm. Definitely. And then the most powerful thing about AI isn't the tech, it's what you choose to do with it. So, are you using it to connect and express your unique voice in your unique way, do your unique work? Is it I like to call it a calculator. That's how I like to think about it, is that this is a calculator. I'm not looking for it to do everything for me. I'm just using it to do
Yeah.
the long division that I don't want to do.
Yeah, it's a new tool for sure. So this is kind of what we came to as far as like how are you really feeling about it? Is it it's probably a little of both for all of us. I think this is a huge tech change, and so we want to recognize that for people. I mean, I guess I think of my parents. I helped my dad set up his smartphone over the weekend, and that took hours. And he has a lot of questions, and like my brother's like, no, don't use Gemini, use Google Assistant. It's just like, oh my God, I like totally try to avoid certain technical topics with certain individuals, but we I'm sure all have mixed feelings about it. Again, this is brought to us by these fine sponsors, Rain Catalyst, Washington State Micro Enterprise Association, and Angela and I, our businesses. But yeah, happy to do Q&A. Angela, did we ever happen to create a summary slide? I bet we didn't.
I
To
think
just
our conclusions was as far as we got.
Okay. I might work on the side just to have a little overlay so we can be reminded of what the pitfalls are.
Mm.
But yeah, feel free to unmute. Again, thanks for coming today. We have another about half hour here to just chit chat and debrief on this content. Take any questions you guys have. So Angela and I are kind of your panel, but we can just have a conversation between those that are here about what you're noticing, what came up for you, etc. So if anybody wants to say hi, please do.
Any stories about your experience with AI? Things that went terribly wrong or went terribly right?
Well, I have kind of an anecdote. I don't know. I had a couple of friends recently ask me to write recommendations for them on LinkedIn, and at the risk of sounding boastful, I'm a good writer, and so I put a lot of time and care into them, and used my memories and my experience of them, and I wrote some really nice recommendations. And one of them accused me of using AI to do it.
Uh,
And I'm like, no, dude, every one of those words is mine based on my experience with you. And he's like, oh, come on.
wow. So
And
kind of a lack of faith in human
Wow.
authenticity, or yeah, isn't that
yeah.
bad?
Yeah, it's funny. A few years back, I mean, quite a while back, I had applied for a job and I sat down in the interview, and this was before I knew about AI. I wasn't using it. I just written a cover letter, and they said the first thing they asked in the interview, they held up my cover letter and they said, "Did you write this? Because there's so many people you can hire to write for you." And I said, "Yes." And I was a little confused and dismayed that they would ask me that. But I was also a little concerned because I thought, "Oh, this is a strange problem to have." And then it's been on my mind lately now with AI that if you are a good writer, do you then need to write in some flaws? Like what
Uh,
what does it sound like? Like what are people looking for then if you're too good? I don't know. I'm not sure. Haven't quite figured out how to navigate that one.
Well, have you followed the back and forth between students and professors in college on, you know, original work being flagged as AI generated?
I have not, but I'm not surprised that
Uh,
that's coming up because I'm thinking about going back to school and that's on my mind as a good writer. Like, oh no, how am I gonna prove? You know?
yeah. Well, and ironically, they're using AI tools to flag AI generated content, and the AI evaluators are hallucinating. And so
Oh my
I
gosh.
saw an interview with one professor who entered her own work into one of these tools, and it flagged her as cheating for using AI.
Yeah,
So,
so this is it gets into governance. Like I in my business I've invented a talk track, really kind of a methodology that is people, content, and technology. And in the technology swim lane is I classify technology as simply as I can, as there's software, tech, hardware, tech. Really, before there's software, there's hardware. So hardware, software, the network of interconnectivity, and then finally is governance of like what's it like? I mean, that's ultimately what we're talking about here, whether we know it or not, is a governance kind of thing of what's it going to be like if we're getting all this free tech right now to get us hooked on all this tech, and then, then it gets behind a premium wall or whatever, and it's instead just infused with ads for Nike and it's just, I mean, you can
mhm.
imagine what that is like when the sewer finds its way into AI and what that does for people. And anyway, so governance is a big part of this. And, you have to be self-governing, like clean up your own house. And then as far as whatever AI regulation is going to come or lack thereof, I just read a book that is it's called The Coming Wave by Suleiman, who's the head of AI research at Microsoft, or AI just all up at Microsoft. And his is containment, like that his view is literally that this degree of power of technology of general use stuff of this kind, it needs to be contained. And if it's not, it's grave. So there is the I don't know if Luddite is the word, it's just trying to
Mm.
find balance here where it's like what have we let out of the bottle really here?
Well, you can
And
be
how do we deal
cautious.
with it?
Yeah.
Yeah, you can be
Yeah.
cautious without being a Luddite.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I
Mhm.
think caution's fine. But yeah, that is a buzzkill, Scott. Thanks for sharing that about yeah, doing your best work and then being accused of by the people you're
I
trying to help of
wonder.
being an
No, I
ignorant.
do wonder, like, how will we deal with that sort of thing as we go along, and in what arenas is it going to be more of an issue than others? So for
Mm.
instance, I studied programming for a little while, and I remember one of my professors saying, there would be one professor who would say, I don't ever want you going online to find your answers. I can tell by your style if this is you writing the code. And while another professor said, in real life, you're in a job, they want something done, they don't care, they just want it to work. So there's settings where no one cares who wrote the thing, it just needs to be written. But then there's other settings where I'm already seeing on YouTube people saying no AI, no AI, marketing their thumbnails and things like that, and their videos, trying to say, look, we never use AI. But again, it's going to turn into how do we prove it that it
Yeah.
wasn't AI, and then how much do we care whether something was or was not, if whatever the writing, the art, the thing, the teaching, the knowledge, if it's effective and it's getting its job done, and it's creating it's a new strange problem.
It's a big
Yeah,
problem
very
too.
true. And then also, sorry for the interruption. Like
Okay.
for me, I've been trying to use this AI, and like even to take when applying to the accelerators or any, making a plan for a marketing strategy, or what is a go-to-market strategy thing. Like AI gives the best plan. Like honestly, it's gonna give me the best plan that, like, if someone who's not aware of AI and looks at that document, he would be like, wow, these guys are very much like into the topic, and they're very clear on what they're talking, and it gives a different impression for the person who actually don't know something about AI. But how would that actually impact the real world right now? Like for example, Eric is pretty much aware of AI, and then he knows what is AI content. And if I try to come to you pitching my plan, and if I try to pitch you with the AI content,
Right.
how would that actually make a difference? And how would you get convinced to look more into my project, or like
Yeah.
Yeah, that kind of.
It's a good question. It's a good question. I understand your question. To
Mhm.
repeat it back a little bit is like it's kind of this scenarios question of like when, so for example, in my work life, I was trying to apply to become a partner to an independent software vendor, and that independent software vendor, like a name brand kind of place, required a, I think, 2 to 3 page written plan. It could even been 4 to 5 pages. So when I read something like that, and I'm like lukewarm as to whether or not I even want to like do the thing, AI. How much did I even edit it or read it? Very little. I tailored it to make it sound like something I could speak to, but from a compliance perspective, it felt to me like I'd be better off to have something than nothing and to be able to have a conversation with whoever I might speak to if I ever made it through that stage in the process on it and this and that and the other thing. And then I would kind of expect that I could maybe say at that time, like, yeah, AI helped me. I could admit, like, look, we're talking because AI, but I'm not an AI, and I have a business plan and a brain and a this and that. So I think more than anything, my argument would be just like AI is content, and but it's not a human interface, and over time, I suppose it could be your agent and speak for you or whatever. Like however far this stuff goes, I don't know, but in the here and now, it's like just again valuing your own humanity and your own honesty and your own ability to connect with other humans and not being ashamed of what you don't know or what you do know or anything and just trying to connect with humans like that's it. Like I just think that's everything.
Yeah, but there's also the twist where, just like some business owner might have a good plan, a good business, all the right ingredients, but they might need to hire a coach to help them share that and deliver that and express that in a way that other people can access and want to invest in. Well, coaches can be expensive, but if you can sit down with an AI and get that done, get that, you put all of like, look at all this great stuff I have, and the AI can say, okay, this is how to present it. This is how it's done in a way that people can hear. Suddenly you're getting a lot less expensive help for something that, but you still have to be able to deliver. Like you still, like you were saying, you still have to be able to deliver what it is you're promising and selling.
Yeah, the way I think about it is like performance enhancing drugs or something like that. Like again, because this is not regulated per se, like we're saying examples of in universities or schools, et cetera, like policing or just zero allowance of people using AI as a policy. That's one scenario. But then I think for other scenarios, I mean, I truly think of it like that, kind of like Angela's example there of like, look, I could use AI to come up with a business plan. I could ask AI to become my business coach. And if I'm talking to somebody who's an investor or whatever, and I tell them that I'm using AI to advise me on my business, and I'm using AI to advise me on how to run a good business, like, why is that bad? Right? Like, what's the downside of that?
Right, right. And that'd be the investor's own risk, in terms of, okay, this person's getting their advice from where. But then the question becomes, which AI, is there a business coaching AI out there? Will there be one eventually you
Right,
can pay for monthly
right.
subscription fee, that's just
Yeah.
so good and well respected that people don't mind if that one's being used. I mean, it's such a whole new world that we're stepping into, and we have no idea what even to do with it.
Angela, what's the story of that person you told me? I remember we were out for a walk and you were telling me it was like somebody that I feel like they're a multi-time author and whatnot, and they basically GPT'd themselves as a frontline mechanism for their own
Yeah,
business.
it was an article that I was reading that someone decided they wanted to use GPT to help them write a novel, which is not abnormal. And they put in a prompt, please write this next passage in the style of author so and so. And then they got the output, and then they copy pasted the whole thing into the the manuscript, which then apparently, and nobody, I guess, I don't really understand how this was missed, but somehow nobody caught that the prompt was in there. So
Mm.
someone at home reading the book suddenly is reading a prompt in the middle of the story, and then the story follows from the prompt. And then the author who did this is now in trouble for trying to imitate another author and
Oh
their
wow.
style, and for using AI in the first place. People are just upset that this passage that now they know, if the prompt hadn't been in there, no one would have known any of this.
Angela, the story I was thinking of is somebody that like I think there are an expert or an author, and they'd basically like put all of their kit and
Oh,
content and everything
yes.
into their own GPT, and
I
then
know what you're talking about. It's the communications expert.
right,
This
right,
guy, he
exactly.
just teaches how to communicate more. Jefferson Fisher, I think his name is. He
Yeah,
teaches how to communicate more effectively. And he's written a couple of books. He's got a lot of podcasts and social media videos that he's made. So took all of his content, fed it into a GPT and turned it into an app so that
right.
people can pay a monthly subscription for this app, and they can ask him effectively help on communication topics as they go along. And he said it's crazy how much it's him in this electronic form, and it answers the way he would answer, gives them advice based on
Mhm.
all of his content, and people are finding it really effective. And he's a little weirded out by it, but
Mm.
he also it's helping people and it works.
But is it a good business model? Is it a good plan? Like if you digitize yourself and go put it on the internet for free, like was that a good move or a bad move? And then the answer is it depends, right? Like
At
maybe
least
it was
he's being
great.
honest about,
We just mentioned
this
his
is
name.
what it is. This is what's been loaded into it. Let's see if it helps you, and he, can monitor the feedback that it gives as well. So
Yeah.
he's being open about it. I think that's the main thing, is maybe we just need to be open as much as we can, as opposed to somebody who people think they're actually having a conversation with someone they're not. Like, we don't want to be lying and using AI to lie necessarily. I mean, of course that's going to happen, and it is
Right.
happening, and it will happen, and it will probably be its own nightmare.
Right.
But that's where I think the open and honest part is going to really play in, where we can say, hey, yeah, this is how I did write this book with the help of AI, and this is how I did it. Just
Yeah.
be open, I think, in a lot
Yeah,
of
I
ways.
think the deceit part to me feels like what the issue is from a regulatory perspective, right? Is like you can use it to lie, you can use it to cheat, and like go ahead. There's liars out there and there's cheaters out there, okay, right? But if it's not regulated to use and you're using it and it seems to help you create a competitive advantage or a personal advantage or have additional competence or confidence or anything similar, like, why would you not adopt a practice that seemed to make things be better?
Right, right. And that gets into how much are you using it. Grammarly has been around for a while, and that's artificial intelligence combing through to see, you check your punctuation,
Right.
your grammar, your syntax, all of
Exactly.
those things, versus someone who's using an AI that's specifically to help write an entire book.
Yeah.
These are two very different AI, like these are very different things. So just to say, well, was it AI or not? Well, if you're using spell check, you're already kind of using an AI type of
Yeah.
thing. And yeah, I think there's going to be a lot of complexity around what it even means to use AI, or how much are you using it just to add bullet points and subheaders to a blog that you wrote, or are you having it write the entire blog post for you?
It reminds me, I remember, I think this might even be a Bill Gates quote, but it's like the definition of AI is software when it works well, or something like that. Like it's it's basically magic once the thing works well. And another thing that popped in my brain just a minute ago is, to this point, the year was 1996, and on my computer I got Scrabble the board game as a PC game, and I'd play Scrabble against the computer, and I soon learned how to play Scrabble really well because I understood what the computer was doing to get really high scores against me and dunk on me and all that. So like I think of this in like snowboarding as well, you know, like and just mimicry in general is like if you can find a pattern or practice or a leader to follow that seems compelling, that helps you, you know, increase your vision of what's possible. I mean, good grief. I mean, there's that isn't that how we learn? I mean, it's obviously one way
Right.
we learn, just mimicry
It's
straight
true.
up.
That's how we, I mean, none of our advancements that we have would be
Right.
happening if we weren't using computers and calculators and
Yeah.
all these other devices and things. And so, yeah, anytime a new technology comes along, there tends to be a big moral, debate of like, what are we doing and how do we, I mean, we're still having discussions as people about how to use smartphones
Yeah.
effectively without
Right.
them, ruining our minds and our lives.
Sure. Totally. I mean, 100%. Yeah, the addiction side or just the tech, what do they call that? Tech density or like what's the topic of the degree to which we're techified? I don't even know how that'd be measured. It's probably
Dependency starts to feel like,
right. It's a lot.
yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Anything, Angela, I think looking back at Pitfalls 1 through 7 that stands out or that you didn't get a chance to say or additional points you'd make?
I think one point I would make, circling back to my example about I wanted to write a blog post about a certain subject. It gave me a bunch of businesses, and I didn't want to market those businesses. It did give me one college. So I ended
Right.
up going to Google and doing my usual research that I normally
Right.
do, gathered my notes the way, I normally do, wrote a blog post myself. And I did have the AI, it did say to me at one point, because I told it I was going to make a blog post, it said, "Do you want me to do it for you?" And just out of curiosity, I said yes, because I wanted to see what it would produce. And I couldn't even read through half of it. It was boring. It just, there was this something about it that it just was not interesting. It didn't have a good quality of point of view, or the voice was wrong. Like it didn't engage me. And it was a subject that I'm interested in. And so I ended up creating a blog post that I did personally feel engaged with and engaging, and other people found it engaging as well. And so then I went back to AI and I said, okay, take this blog post and add subheaders and bullet points. And and that's really all I had it do. And I ended up with, something that I like, that was my output, that I like best. So I think what I want to highlight here is just being leery of taking it wholesale, of just giving it a task, taking that and okay, we're done running with it. That try to be good at what you're doing in and of, know what you're doing, have some idea, have some skill level to whatever it is you're doing, because otherwise you're not going to even know if you're getting quality material out the other end. And I would say that's probably true. I mean, programming, obviously, if you're using it for code, either the code works or it doesn't. But is it elegant code?
Sometimes you don't
Is
know,
it
by the way. Like sometimes you think it works. I was listening to a podcast this morning. They're like, it's like code that gets written to pass unit tests to like say that it's functional, but then you go to deploy it and it's like this doesn't work at all.
break something else?
Yeah,
Yeah, so you need to have some knowledge and skill in
yeah,
order, I think, to really use AI well. I think it
yeah.
helps to have knowledge and skill in whatever it is that you're endeavoring to use AI for.
Yeah,
Well,
and I've run into that when I've used it to help me with Salesforce stuff.
yeah,
My primary use cases as well. How should I do this automation? Or, I get a requirement for a trigger that's going to require this super complicated date and other criteria. And, 3 years ago, I would have taken a stab at it on my own at first and failed. And then I would have gone out to forums and asked friends and things like that to see if anybody's done something similar and get bits and pieces and try and put it all together. Well, then ChatGPT came along. I can just plug the criteria in there and see what it spits out. And it'll be wrong every time. The first time it'll be wrong, but it'll point me in the right direction. But I still need to know how to prune it and tune it and make it work after I've gotten the basic info from Chat GPT. And
Yeah.
I go from 10 iterations down to maybe 3 to get the thing done.
What it reminds me of is a spectrum. I remember learning this long time ago now, but like on one end of the spectrum is do it yourself. So this would be do it yourself without GPT in the loop at all. DIY, hard way. And maybe you can't. And then in the middle is, or on the far side is well, anyway, so do it yourself, do it with you. Somebody helps you, you're getting assistance, and then do it for you on the far end where it's outsourced, you paid somebody to do it and whatever. But it's always still like buyer beware, and that
Yeah.
there's no guarantee in anything, like whether it's healthcare or anything, that unless you're buying a commodity, and you expect in regulated industry that if you buy a pound of sugar, you get a pound of sugar, for example, and that something's
Yeah.
perfectly reliable. But in everything else, it seems like your results may vary. But I agree with your point, Scott, that it does seem to be compressing the duration or the number of steps between a DIY to a do it with you or for you. And especially in these programming scenarios, like it's starting to do it for me. And I'm like, go ahead. It's like, it's to me, it's like, be
Yeah.
my guest. Like, let it rip, but you still need to realize that that's risk taking. And then I'm kind of a risk taking person as a snowboarder and former like dirt bike rider person and whatnot. And
Mhm.
um and I suppose entrepreneur to the same point, right? But um, you know, you got to be careful and it's still your reputation behind it.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because you can't if it does go wrong and it does break something in production, you can't blame it on Chat GPT. They're going to blame it on
It's
you.
it's on you, right?
Yeah,
Like nurses when they can't find the smell, they say it's on you.
that's awesome.
Yeah.
Yes.
Any other kind of questions or comments, Jonathan? Anything you'd add? Like, what's your AI personality?
I don't know if anybody might have made this point while I was dealing with a number of things that have been happening at this house, but my first experiences with AI were failure, 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 total waste of time, failure. Then uh, something that can do a thing, and then something that can do another thing. And what it's kind of ended up being is now with AI, I'm really not much faster than I used to be, but my work product is checked and it's uh, I have a more complete set of examples that support a point that I'm trying to make. So basically, it has made me better, but not really faster.
Mm.
Has it changed? Like, I haven't asked an attorney this question, but like, for example, I guess when I think of an attorney, I think of the English language as it's really words that matter ultimately and precision of language and all that. Has it changed the job or is it changing the job?
Uh, it has changed how people perceive it. It has changed the marketing of the job. Uh, it has made it all the more necessary to go on to have a web presence and a reputation to lose if the work product isn't right.
Yeah,
But as a neophyte, when you don't really have much to
right.
lose, it's not having that effect there.
I-
But has it changed the job? Uh, well, it's made it. We have become largely dependent on it.
Yeah. For research, for writing, for all the above.
Uh, Mostly for research.
Mhm.
I'm not, I'm only able to have it do certain things, certain parts of the writing.
Right, exactly. I can imagine that. But the kind of the almost the due diligence bits or I mean I remember being around LexisNexis stuff way back when, as far as just that, searchable bodies of knowledge of the law and whatnot. I imagine that's on steroids by now.
Yeah, yeah, it's driven the cost of finding good precedent, legal precedent,
Yeah.
way down. And it's made it possible to keep up on all the new developments, but it's also made it necessary to keep up with more developments because they're coming at us all the faster.
Yeah. Yeah. Very good. Cool. Well, we're to time now, so thanks to everybody for listening to our talk today. I'm Eric Veal, and I'm here with Angela Starson, and thanks for audience participation from Scott and Jonathan recently, and Tarun, and others that joined. So hopefully you found this talk interesting. We shared 7 pitfalls about AI. You can see them on the screen now. And then for each one, we had 3 tips and tricks, and hopefully much more. So we'll see you next time, and you can find me at appsjack.com. Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you all. Bye-bye.